So delete this last example part that I told in the previous video. Okay, so now how to move the local to remote backend. So first step is to create an Azure storage account, and within that you'll create a container. So for this you might require a resource group inside which you'll have a storage account. Inside the storage account you will have a container. This is the main three resources that you will be needing. The next step is you will define this backend block within your Terraform block. So define a backend block inside Terraform. So usually you put this in a separate backend.tf file, but otherwise you can just put it into your Terraform root main.tf file itself. Then you will just run Terraform init to initialize your code. So Terraform would at this point Terraform will detect that you are switching backends, and it will ask you, do you want to copy your existing state to the new backend? And then if you say yes, it will migrate your local Terraform state file to the remote storage. So it's as simple as that. The next question to understand is, what is state locking? So if two people are working on the same code on this trying to apply the Terraform are trying to do Terraform apply at the same time, or two CI/CD pipelines are working trying to run Terraform apply at the same time, it will cause a conflict. So in such situations, the resource and basically the nothing should happen to the resources in the cloud, so it has to be locked. So it has to ensure that only one person can modify the state file at a time. That is the main idea. This is to prevent corruption of your infrastructure. So the main idea is that the state file should not be modified by two individuals at the same time or two processes at the same time. It should happen like only one person can access the state file at a time. So where all is state locking supported. So in local, it is not supported, but if you're looking at Azure Storage or AWS S3 or Terraform Cloud, in all these three cases, you will automatically have locking supported. In Azure, it's automatically supported. So when you use a blob, when you use a storage a container, it will automatically make sure that two resources or two individuals will not be able to access the resources within the blob at the same time. So when you use Azure RM as backend, state locking is automatically handled using Azure Blob Storage, Azure Blob lease. So no extra configuration is required. Terraform will lock the state blob while an operation is in progress. So as a complete summary table, you have a local backend wherein the state file will be stored locally on your machine. And if it is a remote backend, it will be stored in Azure or AWS, and it is recommended when you're using teams, when you're using a group of people are using your are working together. Then to do this, to migrate to the remote, you have to make use of Terraform. Like you have to add a block of code within the Terraform block called as backend, and then rerun Terraform in it. Then it will transfer your state file to the cloud. State locking is when we have two individuals working on the same state file. It shouldn't allow that. So it prevents two users from updating the state file at the same time. So it is enabled whenever we are using remote backends. And Azure locking, in Azure, this is done by default with the help of blob lease. And that's it.